Welcome. Today, we dive into a story shaped by time, mystery, and forgotten legends. Let's begin. In the ancient world, where the lines between gods and mortals blurred, and destiny was believed to flow like a river from the heavens, the rise and fall of kings were never simple matters of power. Their lives were shaped by sacrifices, betrayals, and curses that echoed across generations. These stories were not merely recited, they were feared. For every triumph carried a shadow, and every victory held a hidden price. Our story begins on a night drenched in smoke and steel. Troy, the unconquerable city, had finally fallen. Flames climbed like serpents along its towers, ashes blocked out the moon, and cries of victory mixed with the last screams of the defeated. Among the returning warriors stood King Agamemnon, the commander who had led men across seas to wage a decade-long war. He believed this night would mark his greatest triumph, but fate had a far crueler plan waiting for him at home. Agamemnon arrived in Mycenae expecting celebration, yet silence greeted him. His palace, once filled with warmth and music, felt colder than the battlefield he had left behind. His wife, Queen Clytemnestra, approached him slowly. Her face was calm, her eyes unreadable. Agamemnon did not know what she had carried in her heart for 10 long years, a hatred deeper than grief. For before the Trojan War began, the king had sacrificed their daughter, Iphigenia, to win the favor of the gods. And though the winds filled his sails that day, Clytemnestra's heart died with her child. That night, as Agamemnon relaxed in his bath, thinking the horrors of war were behind him, she entered with a blade hidden beneath her robe. "Your victory," she whispered, "was built on the bones of your own blood." And with a single strike, she ended the life of the king who had toppled Troy. The gods, who had once guided him, looked away. But death did not end the curse. It unleashed it. Years passed, and the palace of Mycenae became a place of tension, whispers, and unspoken regrets. The ghosts of decisions made long ago seemed to linger in the corridors. Then came Orestes, the young prince returning home after years of exile. He had grown into a man forged by loneliness and questions he could never escape. But he did not return out of longing. He returned because the god Apollo had given him a command. "Avenge your father." Orestes stepped through the halls where he had once played as a child. Every shadow felt heavier. Every corner felt as if someone was watching. And then he saw her. His mother. The woman whose face he had loved in childhood. Now the woman his destiny demanded he destroy. Clytemnestra tried to speak. Tried to explain that she, too, had been a victim of fate's cruelty. But Orestes had already crossed the point of no return. With Apollo's words echoing in his mind, he struck her down. The sound of her body hitting the floor was followed by a silence that stretched into eternity. But that silence did not stay. It shattered. From the darkness emerged the ancient beings known as the Furies, spirits older than the Olympian gods, born from the very bones of the earth. Their eyes glowed like dying embers, and their voices scraped like iron against stone. They surrounded Orestes, whispering one word again and again: murderer, kinslayer, cursed. Orestes fled, but the Furies followed across mountains, through forests, over barren deserts. They did not sleep, they did not tire, and they did not forgive. Wherever Orestes ran, he could hear their footsteps behind him, growing louder every night. While Orestes wandered in torment, far across the sea, Another tale of beauty and destruction was being whispered. The world still spoke of Helen, the woman whose face was said to have launched 1,000 ships. Some believed she had willingly sailed to Troy, choosing desire over loyalty. Yet others claimed the real Helen had never gone to Troy at all, that a phantom created by the gods had taken her place, while the true queen spent years hidden in Egypt. But whichever story was true, one belief remained constant. Where Helen walked, the world trembled. When Menelaus found her after the war, his sword was ready. He expected to see a woman aged by sorrow or carved by guilt. Instead, she stood before him untouched by time, her beauty still otherworldly, as if divinity itself preserved her. His rage faltered. His hand trembled. And once again, the world could not decide whether Helen was a miracle or a curse. They returned to Sparta together, but whispers followed them everywhere. Whispers that Helen was not merely a queen, but a reminder of how fragile peace truly was. Yet, the greatest wanderer of all was still far from home. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, whose mind was as sharp as the blade he carried. The gods had shaped him for survival, but they had also marked him with misfortune. After the Trojan War, he should have returned home swiftly, but fate, or perhaps divine anger, had other intentions. Odysseus faced monsters that defied logic, and goddesses whose power bent reality. He blinded the Cyclops Polyphemus, only to earn the wrath of Poseidon. He sailed through storms that seemed to laugh at human strength. He visited the land of the dead, seeking answers from spirits long forgotten. He heard the irresistible songs of the sirens and tied himself to the mast to survive their magic. He lost his men to hunger, temptation, and creatures born from nightmares. And when he had nothing left, when his ship was broken and his hope fading, he found himself on the island of Ogygia, held by the nymph Calypso. She loved him. She offered him immortality, a life without pain, without death, without the burdens of kingship. Yet Odysseus refused. "I want to go home," he said, not as a legend, but as a man. Years later, he returned to Ithaca disguised, for his kingdom had fallen into chaos. Suitors filled his halls, devouring his food, plotting to take his wife, Penelope. They believed the king was long dead, but Odysseus, patient as the sea and fierce as the storm, struck with the precision of a man who had seen the edge of the world and returned stronger. He reclaimed his throne, yet even in victory he felt the weight of his journey. Every loss, every decision, every scar. These stories, Agamemnon, Clytemnestra, Orestes, Helen, Odysseus, created a tapestry woven from both glory and tragedy. They remind us that power given by the gods was never given freely. For every gift, a price must be paid. A king could win a war, yet lose his soul. A son could obey the gods, yet be hunted by them. A queen could be adored, yet blamed for the fall of nations. A hero could outwit monsters, yet fail against the cruelty of destiny. Even centuries later, these legends survive because they reflect something eternal. They warn us that fate is not gentle, that every rise invites a fall, and that sometimes the greatest battles are not fought on fields of war, but within the hearts of those chosen by destiny. The gods may have left the world long ago, but their curses still walk among us. The night in Eldergrove passed quietly after the strange vision at the lake. As dawn approached, a soft silver fog drifted through the trees, settling gently on the forest floor. Thomas opened his eyes to the sound of distant birds, their calls echoing in calm, soothing rhythms. For a moment, he simply lay there, breathing in the crisp morning air, feeling the world slowly awaken around him. He stood up, stretched, and looked toward the lake. The surface was still, so still that it almost looked like a mirror, reflecting the pink and golden tones of the rising sun. But something felt different. The forest wasn't just quiet. It felt expectant, as if waiting for something to begin. Thomas walked toward the water's edge, each step sinking softly into the dew-covered grass. The air smelled of pine, morning mist, and something he couldn't quite name, something ancient. When he reached the lake, he noticed gentle ripples moving across the surface, though there was no wind. He knelt down, touched the water, and instantly felt a strange warmth flow through his hand. It wasn't uncomfortable, just unusual, like the lake itself was alive, aware, communicating in its own silent way. Thomas closed his eyes and listened, not with his ears, but with a deeper sense. And in that moment, he felt it. A pull, soft but certain, urging him to follow the path deeper into Elder Grove. He took a slow breath and stood. The forest path ahead of him looked different now. The fog had parted just enough to reveal something new, a faint, glowing trail, weaving between the trees. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, warm and inviting. Thomas hesitated. He knew that following the trail meant stepping further into the unknown, but something inside him felt calm, even comforted. The strange dream from the night before, the glowing lake, the warm water, they were all pointing him in the same direction. So he began walking. The deeper he went, the quieter the forest became. Not an eerie quiet, more like a soft blanket of silence, peaceful and protective. Leaves whispered overhead, as if guiding him forward. Sunlight filtered through the branches in long golden beams, warming the ground as he passed. After some time, he reached a clearing he had never seen before. At its center stood an enormous tree, taller, older, and more majestic than any tree he had ever encountered. Its bark glowed faintly, like it held the memory of 1,000 sunsets. And around its roots, tiny lights floated gently in the air, drifting like slow-moving fireflies. Thomas approached carefully. As he did, the lights gathered around him, circling softly. They didn't frighten him. In fact, they made him feel strangely at peace, as if he had stepped into a place that recognized him. A low hum vibrated through the clearing, subtle and melodic. It wasn't coming from any creature or instrument. It was coming from the tree itself. The sound was warm, soothing, steady, almost like the heartbeat of the forest. Thomas placed his hand on the bark. At that moment, a soft voice, neither male nor female, neither young nor old, filled his mind with clarity and calmness. "Welcome back, Thomas." He froze. His breath caught. Back? Had he been here before? He didn't remember ever visiting such a place. The voice continued, gentle and slow, as though speaking through the leaves. "This forest remembers you. Long before you walked here as you are now, your spirit touched this place. The lake, the visions, the dream. You are returning to something you once lost." Thomas felt his heartbeat slow, not from fear, but from a strange sense of belonging. The voice was comforting, familiar in a way he couldn't explain. "Follow the trail," it said softly. "There is more to remember, and more to discover." The lights drifted away from the tree, forming a path deeper into the forest. Another direction. Another beginning. Thomas took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. Whatever lay ahead, he sensed it wasn't danger. It was discovery, connection, and truth. and with slow, steady steps, he followed the lights deeper into Elder Grove, deeper into the mystery waiting for him. Thomas followed the glowing lights deeper into Elder Grove, the forest around him becoming more surreal with each step. The trees twisted into shapes that seemed alive, their branches forming patterns reminiscent of ancient symbols he had only seen in old manuscripts. The air smelled of pine, wet earth, and something metallic, like iron, a scent that reminded him of battles long past. As he walked, the voice returned, calm and resonant. "You are not merely wandering, Thomas. This place holds the memory of wars and empires that shaped the world long before men carved stone cities or wrote the first histories." Suddenly, the path widened, and the forest gave way to a vast open plain. Before him stretched a battlefield frozen in time, bathed in the soft glow of eternal twilight. Thomas could see formations of soldiers, some wielding bronze swords and shields, others in iron armor, chariots rolling over the earth. There were archers with composite bows, catapults hurling stones, and war elephants carrying banners of gold and crimson. He realized he was witnessing a convergence of history, a single battlefield containing elements from multiple civilizations. To the east, formations reminiscent of the Hittites and Mycenaeans clashing in disciplined ranks. To the south, chariots and spearmen moving like shadows, echoing the campaigns of the ancient Egyptians, perhaps inspired by the battles of Pharaoh Ramses II to the north, a line of heavily armored warriors resembling early Roman legions, their standards glinting in the pale light. It was as if Elder Grove had captured the memory of every major conflict in early human history and held it in this timeless panorama. The voice spoke again. "These wars, Thomas, were more than conquest. They were struggles for knowledge, for culture, for survival. Every empire you have learned of, the Egyptians, the Hittites, the Greeks, the early Romans, passed through this field of memory. Their victories and defeats echo here, preserved in the forest." Thomas walked among the spectral armies, though they did not notice him. Each clash of sword and shield, each cry of battle, was accompanied by flashes of insight in his mind. He saw strategies being formed, treaties being written, betrayals and alliances unfolding. He recognized the familiar stories from history books, but now he understood the hidden threads connecting them. In the center of the battlefield rose a massive tree, older and larger than any he had seen, its roots sprawling across the plain like veins carrying life itself. Its bark shimmered with carvings depicting kings, generals, and scholars. Above it hovered ethereal lights, forming constellations that mirrored those known to the ancient Greeks and Babylonians. "This tree," the voice explained, "is the witness to all human endeavor. Its roots drink from the rivers of time. Its branches touch the heavens. Those who walked history's path left traces here. Their knowledge, their ambition, their courage, and their folly." Thomas approached the tree and placed his hands on the glowing bark. Suddenly, visions of key historical events filled his mind. The siege of Troy, with Achilles and Hector locked in combat. The wooden horse standing silently as fate unfolded the rise of Babylon. With Hammurabi inscribing his code on stone, shaping the law for generations. The campaigns of Alexander the Great, sweeping across Persia and Egypt, leaving cities named in his honor and knowledge exchanged between cultures. The construction of the pyramids, where engineers and laborers worked under the scorching sun, guided by the stars and mathematics. The Greek-Persian Wars, where strategy and courage determined the survival of civilizations, each memory, vivid and detailed, revealed the interconnectedness of human history. Wars were not merely violence. They were forces that shaped societies, art, philosophy, and understanding. Elder Grove had recorded it all, as if the forest itself were a living chronicle of human endeavor. Thomas felt a presence beside him. A figure appeared, glowing faintly, neither entirely human nor entirely spirit. "You have seen the past, Thomas," it said. "Now understand its lesson. History is not simply dates and names. It is the flow of cause and consequence, the balance of ambition and wisdom, the cost of pride, and the reward of understanding." The lights around the tree pulsed, and the battlefield began to fade. The soldiers, the chariots, the elephants, all dissolved into a soft mist. Thomas felt the warmth of the forest, the gentle hum beneath his feet. The voice whispered one final time, "The wars have ended. The empires have fallen, and the forest remembers all. You are the guardian of their memory, the witness of their lessons. Carry it with you, and the world will not forget." Thomas closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was back at the clearing by the lake. The silver fog drifted gently, birds called softly, and the forest was calm. The tree still stood, enormous and luminous, but no battle remained. Only memory and peace. He understood at last. Elder Grove was a bridge between past and present, a place where history lived in silence, waiting for those who would listen. And now he had listened. With a final deep breath, Thomas turned from the lake and walked slowly through the forest. The path before him was quiet, golden sunlight filtering through the leaves. He carried the knowledge of millennia in his mind, the weight of history tempered by the serenity of the forest. For the first time, he felt truly at peace. And Elder Grove, timeless and wise, watched over him as it had watched over countless generations, its secrets safe, its lessons remembered, and its stories eternal.